Okay, so some of you are asking about the bird. His name is Marvin. He is a Myers parrot. I am bird sitting for the next few months. I don't know a ton about birds, so I'm actually learning a lot caring for him. And I didn't realize that there is a whole homemade food for birds movement like our dogs and cats. So I might dig into that little tidbit of information on the bird side as well while I have Marvin hanging out with me. So sorry if you hear him whistling and squawking and things like that. He loves to be the center of attention. So that is Marvin, the Myers parrot. So today we're going to talk a little bit about gut health. And we talk about this a ton because gut health is so important to overall health. So for our pets, for us, cats and dogs, we hear a lot about prebiotics, probiotics, digestive enzymes, anti-inflammatories. And if you're anything like me, I do this all day, every day, and even I get confused when I'm trying to pick something to support my pet's gut health in the right way. So I wanted to go over a few options today with all of you, and we're going to dig in just kind of a surface level of some of the options that we have when it comes to gut health and suggestions, and then you can kind of take that from there and see what might best help your specific pet. So some things that might affect your pet's gut health, it could really be anything. It could be age as they get older, it can suffer a little bit. It could be the diet. It could be medications. Obviously, antibiotics are very hard on the gut microbiome. Different diseases, even lifestyle choices. Our dogs and cats used to spend a lot of time outside on rich soils versus now they're spending more time inside and more time on concrete instead of dirt. So there are all these things that really impact our pet's gut health. And the gut, like I said, is kind of, it's at the center. It's the core of a lot of health, allergies, IBD, inflammation, a lot of that stems from the gut. So when you talk about gut health, depending on who you listen to, you might hear very different suggestions. So for example, in our summit, we had Holly Gans from Animal Biome. She might tell you, almost always want to use a fecal transplant capsule. If you talk to Billy from Green Juju, he might say, fermented raw dairy and fermented foods is your best place to get those probiotics and gut health. If you talk to, Dr. Tobias, he might tell you that the special formulation he has in Gut Sense is the best solution. So today we're going to kind of go over all of the options that we commonly talk about. This is not an exhaustive list because there's hundreds, and kind of their different benefits and different uses and how I think about gut health products for my pets. All right, so let me see if I can share my screen. Technology is not my friend this morning, so we'll see how this goes. Marvin, you're gonna have to not be the center of attention for a second, buddy. Okay, so let me know if you can see my screen. It's a little table of probiotics, digestive enzymes. If you guys can comment and make sure that you can see my screen, because I don't want to be talking about things and you can't see it. All right. So basically, we have 5 major brands that we at Dr. Judy Morgan's Naturally Healthy Pets commonly work with, use ourselves, and have clients that use. Like I said, this is not an exhaustive list, and even these brands have more products when it comes to gut health. These are just the ones that we have personal experience with, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. So to start off, I kind of broke it out into 3 different categories. The first row is going to be your pre and probiotics. So that's pretty basic. We know a lot about probiotics, and prebiotics basically help the gut basically use those probiotics to the fullest extent. And the prebiotics and probiotics we're finding kind of need to be coupled together to really be as effective as possible. So all of these things in the first row are basically a pre and probiotic. The second row is when we get into the digestive enzymes. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then the third row are some gut health anti-inflammatories. So to start off with our RX vitamins column, A lot of you use these products. So RX Biotic, it's a pre and probiotic. It comes with a little powder. I don't know if you can see, but it's just a little powder and a little scoop. This is for cats and dogs. I've used this personally for my cats and dogs. My cats, this is the only probiotic I have found that my cats will actually eat in their food. It doesn't have a strong taste. My cats are extremely picky. I tried the Florafor with them. I haven't tried the Adored Beast yet, but they're very, very picky. They wouldn't even drink the raw goat's milk. So the RX Biotic is what I've used a lot for my cats, simply because I know it's a good product and they will actually eat it. And it did work very well for my dog Mila as well. When it comes to digestive enzymes, they have a product called RxZyme. Digestive enzymes are exactly what they sound like. They are little enzymes that help your pet digest the food efficiently. So that's absorbing the nutrients and breaking down the food that they're consuming. So not always, but sometimes when you see dogs where they have, identifiable chunks of food in their stool, that may be, not 100%, but that may be a sign that digestive enzymes may be helpful because they're not properly breaking down the food. If it's something like mushrooms, that's something typically whole mushrooms. If they're not finely chopped and maybe even cooked, they are pretty hard for the dogs to digest and break down. But just generally speaking, if you have a dog with a really inefficient digestive system, digestive enzymes are fantastic. We recommend this quite a bit with dogs with pancreatitis, as an example. Then if we move down to the bottom row, the anti-inflammatory that RX Vitamins has is called Nutrigest. Let me grab it. Let's see. So Nutrigest, so you can see, it actually has probiotics and it has things like L-glutamine and aloe in it. It has a whole bunch of other ingredients. But basically, the goal is not only to have those pre and probiotics to help with the gut microbiome, but also it has some additives in it to try to decrease the inflammation in the bowel. So this, of course, our IBD dogs, a lot of inflammation in there. A lot of our allergy dogs, there's a lot of gut inflammation. So those are three options. And like I said, like pancreatitis or IBD, allergies, those are some big, broad, sweeping categories where we can say, okay, you might want to start with a gut health supplement that has a little bit of an anti-inflammatory component to it. However, for a lot of these things, we recommend rotation because they do have different strands of probiotics, they have different enzymes, different ingredients in them that may work better for your pet at one time or another. Okay, so that's RX Vitamins. We've been dealing with RX Vitamins for probably decades at this point, so you're probably all pretty familiar with those. The Adored Beast Apothecary is the new line that we've been carrying, but they're not new to the pet industry. Many of you have been using these products before we mentioned them. So basically, their base level pre and probiotic, which is their own special blend. Larch is their prebiotic, and I think they have 14 different strands of probiotics. And that's what they call love bugs. So that's kind of like their base level pre and probiotic is the love bugs. Now, if you want the pre and probiotic love bugs plus a digestive enzyme, that is their healthy gut supplement. Healthy gut. So that if the love bugs is working well for your pet, but say you think that they may need a little bit extra, or maybe they have a history of pancreatitis or a history of inconsistent stools, you might want to start with the healthy gut because it is basically love bugs plus a digestive enzyme. If not to confuse the heck out of everyone, but if we move back to RX Vitamins, that is not, these things don't build on each other as you go down. So RX Biotic is not a part of RxZyme. RxZyme is pretty much just enzymes. So if your pet really likes the RX Vitamins and does very well, then you might want to do the RX Biotic plus the RxZyme. For Adored Beast, you would not want to do that. You don't want to do love bugs plus healthy gut because healthy gut already has the base of love bugs in it. Okay, so I hope that makes sense for people. Now, if we move down to the anti-inflammatory, they have Gut Soothe, which, similar to the Nutri-Digest, it does have the probiotics in it. So it has the love bugs as the base. And then they add quite a few things for anti-inflammatory. So I really love the ingredient list on the Gut Soothe. It also has, besides their probiotics and the larch, which is a prebiotic, they have slippery elm. They have L-glutamine, which is a great anti-inflammatory. They have marshmallow root, aloe. All of those are really, really great for anti-inflammatory, again, like your IBD dogs. But Adored Beast does recommend, if you have a dog, if you have, or a cat, dog or cat, if you have a healthy animal that doesn't have any digestive issues, Adored Beast does not, from what I know, they do not recommend that you keep your pet on one of these products forever necessarily. It could be a good little boost, or if they have to go on antibiotics or some type of stress, it's great to do, and maybe you go through a little jar and then you give them a rest. If you do have a pet with digestive struggles or a history of digestive struggles, you can actually rotate through the Love Bugs Healthy Gut and Gut Soothe. And that is what they recommend, is kind of rotating through all three, or at least picking two of them and rotating. So again, rotation, like we talk about rotating proteins, rotating foods, the Adored Beast Apothecary column, if your pet has any type of digestive issues, they do really recommend rotating through those three, because you will get slightly different benefits from each one. Okay, hopefully that made sense. So now we're going to move over to carnivore. So many of you know carnivore as the only kibble that we would consider feeding our pets. Now, we don't actually feed our pets kibble, but that company is dedicated to trying to source very high quality ingredients and have a high quality formula that's as high as meat as possible as you can get into a kibble. What you may not know about carnivore as a company is they also have a product called Florafor. And I'll grab it. It's actually a 100% raw and organic whole food supplement. Okay, so it's a little bit different than the first two that we're talking about. The only thing in this is sprouted seeds. Okay, so it's a whole food supplement. It has live probiotics and enzymes from these natural whole food sources. It also, not listed here, but it has tons of vitamins and minerals. So we often recommend this for people that are making homemade food. You can use this with commercial food as well, but specifically for people with homemade food, because it does check so many boxes on the nutrition side of things. So it does have pre and probiotics. It does have digestive enzymes. It has vitamins. It has minerals. So this is a really, really great whole food supplement that you can add to a commercial food or a homemade food, but specifically for homemade food, it has the added benefit of the vitamins and minerals to help you balance your meals. So this is really great. I actually, Florafor, when we first got it in, I was a little bit skeptical because literally the only ingredients are these ground sprouted seeds. I used it for my dog Mila, who had a history of IBD, very severe IBD, before I rescued her. And then when she had her emergency gastrotomy, when she ate the diaper, they literally had to slice open her whole abdomen and her bowels. And I was really concerned about her gut microbiome after that, because her whole just GI tract was so inflamed and so angry. And so I started her off on a home cooked diet after surgery, and I added the Florafor, like I said, to help balance it, but also to help repopulate the gut microbiome. And she did fantastic. I was absolutely blown away by how well she bounced back, to the point where I have a hard time with her weight staying stable. And she actually got a little chubby when I was home cooking for her and using the Florafor. So sometimes when you try these new products, you might be a little bit surprised. And that is why I really love the methodology of rotating through some of these gut health products. If you have a dog like mine, Mila, who has a history of IBD, who had then a major surgery that really disrupted her gut microbiome, because I have seen benefits from the RX Biotic and RX Zyme when I first adopted her. Then when I tried RX Biotic again, it wasn't quite doing what it had previously. So then I had the Florafor, and she just did really well on the Florafor. And next I'm actually going to try the Symbiota with her, because I think that that might be just the key that I've been missing. So speaking of, there's a company called Biostar. I actually stumbled upon this company for my horse. So if any of you know, I adopted a horse that is a medical nightmare. He only has one eye. He had cancer and EPM, and he was skin and bones. So he was a little bit of a mess. And when we treated the EPM, I used a traditional veterinarian, and the traditional medications for that are extremely harsh. And they did help his EPM. However, they completely destroyed his gut biome to the point where my poor horse had liquid diarrhea, uncontrollable liquid diarrhea, and he was dropping weight significantly. So that was when I said I need help, and luckily I found, or my mom suggested I talk to Dr. Harmon, who is kind of like Dr. Judy for horses. She's amazing, and she introduced me to the Biostar company, and specifically their soil-based organism product called Symbiota. And that plus colostrum basically single-handedly saved my horse's life. No joke. He was so sick. His gut health was so terrible that I thought that he wasn't going to make it because his diarrhea was just out of control. So that is how I actually got introduced to this product, because I had firsthand experience with it. I was so impressed, and I saw that they also have a dog line. So this is a little bit different. Symbiota is a probiotic blend, unlike the Adored Beast that has, I think, 14, I'll fact check that, 14, I think, different strains of probiotics. This only has 3 strains of probiotics. It comes in a little glass bottle. However, it also has chaga mushrooms, which are a fantastic anti-inflammatory. And it also has fulvic and humic acid in it. And so the whole idea behind that is our pets used to be exposed to very rich soils previously, before we mostly kept them inside and walking on concrete. So the idea is the soils are rich with tons of organisms, bacteria, viruses, fungi. And so the idea, especially with dogs and cats that are hunting and through the forests and things, is that they're no longer getting exposed to these soil-based organisms like they used to. So they kind of have a different methodology behind it, where it's not just a straight probiotic. They have these 4 main ingredients that they think is great for the immune system as well as the GI tract. It doesn't have any digestive enzymes in it, so it's pretty much just the probiotic and then the chaga mushrooms and the humic acid. Yeah, they are both anti-inflammatories. The fulvic acid is what helps with increased digestion efficiency, I think. Anyway, so we got this product in because it basically was so amazing for my horse. And my mom, Dr. Judy, saw it and she said, you know what, I want to give that a try. It's a liquid. It comes in a glass jar. It actually has this warning tape on it that says that it's going to have an earthy odor to it, so you don't think that it's bad or rotten. It has a pretty strong smell to it. She actually tried this with her dog Shayna, who is older and is on a lot of medications because she has a ton of medical issues. She's had different issues with bacteria, and her stools basically have not been consistent for years because she just has had all of these medical struggles. And so my mom tried the Symbiota when we got it in, and she called me and she said, this is the first time Shayna has had a normal poop in I don't know how long. She's like, the only thing I changed is I added the Symbiota, something in it, whether it's their probiotic blend or the chaga mushrooms or just the whole product as a complete, what am I trying to say? As a complete supplement, there we go. Something just resonated super well with Shayna, who we have tried pretty much everything with. And this was the thing that she was missing in her gut microbiome. And now she has normal poops. And so, that's why I really enjoy trying all these different things, because sometimes you'll try something and your pet just reacts so wonderfully to it. And you didn't know that that was what you were missing. And then Dr. Tobias, I know a lot of you use his product. He has a gut sense product as well. That's just for dogs, but it's a great product. If you use gut sense, we also really like gut sense. Okay, so I'm going to go through a few questions, but basically the way that we are looking at probiotics, digestive enzymes, and anti-inflammatories right now, like I said, if you ask a whole bunch of other people in the industry, you'll probably get a different answer from everyone. But what we really love to do for our own pets is rotation. So we really like to try different brands, different types of probiotics, different types of probiotics plus enzymes or anti-inflammatory. If you have a dog or a cat that has a history of something that involves inflammation in the gut, allergies, IBD, you may want to start in kind of the anti-inflammatory category to see if that helps. And if it doesn't, you can try something different. But we've had really great success with all of these products at different stages and with different pets. And I think it's really about finding what works best for you and your pet. And if you can rotate either on or off, or if you want to add, you take a break and you add in some raw dairy, raw fermented dairy. You can also do raw fermented foods as well. There's a lot of benefit in raw fermented foods for natural whole food sources of probiotics and enzymes. If you're feeding your pet a raw food that's not processed in any way, they're going to get a lot of the natural microorganisms that way as well. So that's a great way to support your pet's gut microbiome. But until we really have a lot more research that says, these specific strains for cats and dogs and these specific ingredients and this processing, right now it's really about finding what works for you. So I hope that you can use this as kind of a baseline guide and then try a few things out, see what works best for your pet. Like I said, I have used all of the RX Vitamins line with my IBD dog. They all worked very well in the beginning. Then I moved on to Florafor. That worked very well. And now I'm going to try the Symbiota because I have a feeling that she's going to respond very well to the Symbiota, but I'm going to test it out because I don't know for sure. And if that isn't as good, then maybe I'll move back to the Florafor. So you don't have to do that. If you find something that works really well for your pet, feel free to not change what's working really well. But for us, we really love the idea of rotation. We talk about it all the time. And with probiotics, you're going to get different strains of probiotics. You're going to get different CFU counts and all these different things. And they're all slightly different. So they may resonate better with your pet's microbiome one way or the other. Okay. And if you're at all interested, I made this little table literally for myself because I was getting confused and I was like, wait, which one has what? So if you find this table helpful, I can share it out as well. Oh, Judy Morgan has a question. Which cannot be used on cats? So Dr. Tobias only advertises his supplements for dogs. Symbiota is only labeled for dogs as well. The Florafor can be used for cats and dogs. The RX Vitamins, the Biotic can be used for cats and dogs. Not sure about Nutrigest, so double check that. The Adored Beast line can be used on cats and dogs. They do have specifically a feline gut soothe that I did not get, but they do have the instructions if you want to use the gut soothe on your cat. I think you just give them half of the amount, but I'll double check. The instructions are on the website. So pretty much everything except for the Symbiota and the Gut Sense would be okay for kitties. And like I said, the Adored Beast does have specifically, I know, a feline gut soothe. They might specifically have a feline healthy gut protocol as well. But on the website, drjudymorgan.com, under all these product listings, it will say for dogs only or for dogs and cats. And if the cats have different dosing, it'll say that as well. Someone says I love research. Yes, I do love to research, and this topic is a little bit hard for me because there isn't a ton of concrete research that says, I'm the kind of person that I really like that says this is the, this is the strain that is great for your pet's microbiome. This is not really as much of a science as it is an art. So this is a little bit different for me, but I also really like kind of finding out what works for my animals, because all of my animals are like medical nightmares, of course. Okay. Someone you were asking about, oh yes, Dr. Judy Morgan herself has a good point that I forgot to mention. So the Symbiota, because it is soil-based organisms, it may be helpful if your pet is giving you signs that they need more soil in their diet. So you don't want to give your dog specifically just dirt to eat, but if your dog goes outside and gets into, eating grass, eating dirt, things like that, that may be a sign that they are searching for those soil-based organisms. So again, that's a sign that maybe you want to try something like the Symbiota first, because it is a soil-based. It doesn't mean that that's going to be the exact reason why your pet is searching for soil or licking dirt, eating grass, but that could be potentially a sign that the Symbiota might be a good place to start. I should also mention, if you are a very loyal Adored Beast Apothecary client, they have another product that we didn't add, but I think is fantastic. It's called Fido's Flora. And basically it is the love bugs, which is the pre and probiotic, plus the humic and fulvic acid, which is what I was just talking about with the Symbiota. So the Fido's Flora product would be kind of comparable-ish to the Symbiota in the fact that they have the soil-based organisms. The Symbiota still has the chaga mushrooms, which we love chaga mushrooms. They're a fantastic anti-inflammatory. So that is what makes them kind of stand out. But to be devil's advocate, the Fido's Flora has about 14 or 16 different strands of probiotics, and the Symbiota has 3 strands of probiotics. So just kind of depends on what you're looking for. Okay. I think that is pretty much it. Someone uses Biostar for their horses. Yes, Biostar has a whole horse line as well, and they are fantastic. I really strongly recommend that for horses if you have. Someone was saying that Florafor made their pet itch, and that is, we have heard that a little bit. I would say it's not the majority, but it's not the legumes itself, it's the sprouted seeds. So if your pet has a lot of like plant-based allergies, may or may not react to that. And like I said, a lot of these products, they don't really recommend being on forever. They do recommend taking breaks or rotating through, specifically the Adored Beast. I know they mentioned quite a few times that they don't really want your pet to just, use healthy gut. They do well and you keep them on healthy gut forever. They much prefer that you rotate through either their other gut health products or you take a break and then start again. Let's see. Okay, I think I answered most of your questions. There are a lot of questions, so I probably didn't. Something with slippery elm should not be given long-term, short-term during inflammatory axis. Yes, that is a good point. The Gut Soothe is the one that has the slippery elm. Yes, the slippery elm in it. The Nutrigest does not have slippery elm. I think it's just the Gut Soothe is the only thing that has slippery elm. So you'd want to use that container up, and then if your pet is showing improvements, then you can go ahead and maybe switch to like the love bugs. That is just the pre and probiotic. Okay. All right. I hope everyone enjoyed our little session. Like I said, if this little table is helpful for people, I can just turn it into a picture and share that out. And hopefully I don't have any of the owners of these companies telling me, oh, you missed this part of my product. But if I do, I'll go correct it and then we'll come back and talk about it again. And my music's not going to work, so I'm not going to sit here in 2 minutes of silence. But if anyone has any questions, please let us know. If not, like I said, I hope that this just clears up where you can start based on what makes sense for your pet. And then you can always rotate through and try different things and see what really helps your pet. Like I said, the Symbiota was a miracle for one of our dogs. But, you know, one of our other dogs did fantastic on the Florafor. So give it a try and see what works, and feel free to share if you have a really great experience with one over the other. I'm always happy to learn more about all of these things. All right. Well, Marvin, we don't have any music. Maybe you could like whistle or something, buddy. All right. I hope everyone has a fantastic day. We're back on the horse with content. So we will go ahead and see you guys tomorrow. All right. Bye.